Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of SaaSy Moms, where we talk about technology, motherhood, and everything in between. My name's Wendy.
And my name is Anya. And today we are diving into a question that I think every product manager, product marketer, and founder asks at some point. Building features and products is very expensive. But why do some features or products take off and they become game changers while others don't? And you end up spending a lot of money into building them. So everyone wants to prevent that.
Yeah, and I think more importantly, how do you actually increase your chances of launching a successful feature or product? We have seen so many different technology companies, either just, working with other product marketers or even our companies that we have spent a lot of time with. A lot of companies spend a lot of time, like I mean months and sometimes years, just developing, features and products that at the end didn't really meet the outcome and nobody uses it. And the most probably common failed feature that probably everyone can relate to is Microsoft Clippy. I don't know if anybody if you remember. Is Clippy was meant to assist, users in Word by predicting their next move. But it seriously just was so annoying. This little thing just keeps doing things, and then you're trying to do things, so it's just super annoying. Yeah, so Anya, do you think there is a methodology or a science behind launching features that, are successful versus that are not?
I definitely do. And I can tell you that launching a new feature is not lucky. It's not about being lucky. It has a science behind it. In fact, now thinking about this Clippy that failed back in the days, maybe it failed because it was the wrong time for it. There was no AI or anything like that that could have predicted a workflow truly. So maybe Microsoft can reconsider and launch this feature again now as AI is here. But that's another topic. So there is a method to launching successful product, and very often it involves experimentation as well as digging into customer insights as much as you can, and honestly, really validating a product problem. So it involves a lot of structure, intention, and hard work.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm so interested to kind of learn, what you think it's the methodology that our audience can adopt to. But Anya, can we first define like what do you mean by like a successful product launch or a feature launch?
Absolutely. So first of all, there is a difference. What define success means for a feature versus a product. Because feature can have multiple different types of successes, but when we talk about launching a successful product, meaning we need to launch something new, or we need to create something new that users will use. The only real factor that determines its success is there a market fit? And market fit is determined by two main factors. First of all, your product needs to have a demand, not just an interest. Your customers should actually be willing to adopt and pay for your product. In fact, readiness to pay, when testing readiness to pay, no matter how great your solution is, you have to test the readiness to pay for actually solving the problem instead of readiness to pay for a solution. But also another factor that is important for a product market fit is the retention, meaning now as your users are ready to pay for it, are they also ready to stay with you and renew your subscription for a second and third year? So I guess these are the main kind of key success factors.
Yeah, can you elaborate a little bit more on like what do you mean by willingness to pay for the problem and not the solution?
Yeah, I mean, what if so a customer can have multiple products and problems, sorry, and potentially there already can be alternatives on how they solve this problem. Maybe not even like using your product specifically and directly, right? So a customer might be satisfied to use those alternatives, and even though you can I don't know, improve their workflow of solving this problem by a certain amount of efficiency gain or something like that, they might not be even ready to put money and effort into it.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point. Is I think people sometimes misunderstand on like the market fit. It's like, oh, like as long as I have customers that paying for it and there's demand for it, like I should create a product for it. But it's like, would customers actually pay for a product to solve a specific pain that they currently have that the alternatives are just not cutting for it? So I love that you brought up this point. But I also love that you brought up like, retention. um, I don't know if you remember, but like our episode 2 where we talked about, the SaaS concept, and the key here is really recurring revenue. So if you can't, you got the user or you got the customer, but if you can't retain them, that's going to be a huge like customer acquisition cost that it's, a burden to your company. So Anya, what does it actually mean, for a feature to be successful? You talked about the products. So how about a feature?
Yes, so with feature, now everything depends on the goal. If you have an established product, you have your market fit, you know how you generate your revenue, and it is successful, there may be many goals that this feature will have outside of just, specifically like revenue or retention. Right. So number one can be increased engagement, features that really drive this daily active users and monthly active users. One of the great feature or example will be Spotify's Discover Weekly playlist. And it's successful because people are generally like can be tired of the music that they listen every day, and the what's new feature makes them go back to the app, return, scroll through the new music that is there, and really just use this feature. Without it, maybe they will not even open Spotify. When they drive to work, for example, on Monday, right? So another goal can be retention. So not necessarily, again, you will have any financial outcome with the feature, but you can add on to the existing value by solving some pain points that your app didn't solve before. And it can be a simplification of a certain workflow that users tend to do in a maybe more challenging manner, and things like that.
Mhm.
Now, another example can be reduced support costs. You can introduce features that solve challenging UX issues that your app currently has and that create support tickets. Now, again, you don't generate revenue, but you reduce support costs by fixing this issue and reducing support tickets. Or potentially, you can actually have a feature that will help you to acquire new customers. You can have a goal to acquire niche customers. You might not even or larger accounts, right? And this feature might not necessarily drive tremendous amount of engagement, but it can play a key role in generating a large revenue for you if, let's say, only like 1% of customers use them, but these are large accounts. So I see honestly that many product managers do the same mistake over and over again by thinking that just tracking a feature adoption is enough. And while yes, most of the times feature adoption is pretty important factor in success. There are many other scenarios where feature will just help business overall, and won't show a strong adoption, but will accomplish a certain goal that your business needs.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned this because there are many features that I was part of for the launch. I think product management would think, hey, like this is the goal I want to track. Sometimes one small reminder is to remember to incorporate how you can actually track it while you're developing that feature. For some reason, that's often missed. This
Mhm.
is as a friendly reminder to always be able to think forward, like, hey, how are you going to actually track it? When you launch it. Because like sometimes you might have to do some small, changes to the product to be able to track it, and things like that. But anyways, um,
Mhm.
So, you mentioned, tracking products and feature success. How do we ensure that we are driving the one that has the biggest impact, right? Because I bet you have 1,000 lists on your backlog. So how do you choose to like which one to work on?
I do, and every day my backlog of features just increases.
Yeah.
But same, my message will be the same. The mindset has to be switched. You will always have a huge backlog of features, and it will always bring you nowhere. So instead of focusing on a backlog of features, try focusing on the backlog of problems that your customers have and how those problems fit into the mindset and into your business landscape. And you select the one problem that will be the most beneficial to your goal as a new company or as an already established company.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a great perspective. And I see a recurring theme here. It's all about
Mm-hmm.
understanding like what your customer, your prospects, like their biggest problem is to help you kind of prioritize it. But and sometimes it's like PMs really need to think about like stop thinking about themselves as just launching features because
Yes.
my customer asked for this. I'm trying to satisfy my customer. They really need to think of themselves as like I'm trying to solve a problem for a problem that they're trying to solve is that someone will pay for that pain to go away. Because if they don't pay for that pain to go away, your product is not going to help, and any features that you launch is not going to help drive your business forward. So,
Yeah, and by the way, Wendy, can I also just quickly elaborate here? When also I talk about problem, not always do I mean like customer problem, because there can also be a huge backlog of customer problems, right? You also have to always think about the business problem. I think in episode 10, I did already explain to it, right? But you always need to think, okay, what am I solving? Am I solving a churn problem right now? Why is churn important for my business, right? And then within churn problem, you find the customer problem that will help you to that you solve. So there is a problem within problem, and only then comes a solution. You have a business problem, then you have a customer problem within the business problem, and then you find a solution.
yeah, no, I love that. All right,
Mhm.
Anya.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about the theory and like this, how you kind of like made it really easy for people to understand. So I'm going to give you a problem, and you help me
Okay.
solve it. So let's say you're a new product manager that is responsible for like a password management application. And your manager and your business is asking you, hey, the business goal is to increase revenue by 15%. So as a new product manager in a company, how would I choose which problem to tackle first?
Okay, perfect. So, to me, increasing revenue by 15%, usually, in most cases, might mean that, hey, you have to like either introduce an add-on feature, right, or do something to penetrate a new market or see if there is a market potential to acquire more customers, right? And this is where kind of product management becomes an art, because you do have to use research together with your intuition, in order to be able to find the features or the products that will be able to solve it. Now, assuming you already did your competitive landscape analysis, because this is type of problem where I would engage into competitive analysis and understand a lot of different kind of aspects of it. Assuming you know your users well, you know your business already, you know your resources, and you already selected the top three problems, how that will help to increase this revenue. Then what you have to do is just start, with a couple of things. First, you can launch your survey, and in your survey, focus on problems that you selected and ask customers which problem has a bigger effect on their life with questions like, how often do you experience this on a scale from 1 to 10, how frustrating this pain point are, or how much effect does it have in your life, a workflow? What happens if you didn't solve it? What happens if this problem is solved? And this will kind of give you sort of a starting point of identifying the problem that you have to solve. Um,
I like that, right? Because like it helps you pinpoint on like, okay, which areas do you need to focus on? And interestingly, I think marketing uses surveys a lot too.
mhm.
And also just to like, I think there's two kinds of surveys that we often do in marketing. It's like just industry stats. Like what are the general market feels about? You know, where the market is headed, what are the common pains that they have? That's more like just to generate, data on our target audience. But also internally, we do a lot just to like figure out any insights that we can like gather, like has the market changed? Has our audience changed? Has their pain changed? How has the recent economic downturn or whatever it is, or technology trends have affected their day-to-day as well. Really trying to understand like where their pain points are. And from that angle, it helps us understand should we change our messaging a little bit because it's more timely this way and things like that. But how do you, after you do this kind of qualitative research or quantitative research, how do you kind of go a layer deep to really understand like, okay, you identified the problem. This is a problem that majority of my customers have. How do you go to that next step and figure out like, hey, which feature do I launch? What product do I launch? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, so as you mentioned correctly, surveys just help you to select a problem. So surveys should be used only when you need more like qualitative analysis to understand the general trend, but you want to understand like the why behind this problem. And this is where you just go and you establish interviews with your customers. Um, these interviews are best to actually collaborate with product marketing manager because digging into customers' problems is what will help product marketing manager to better understand how to position a product or a feature on the market so that it again becomes successful. So what message to use within the market. And I think, Wendy, we did a lot of interviews like this together with you, and you're definitely pro in asking some of the questions. Maybe you can give the examples of those.
Yeah, I think it's like from a understanding their pain point perspective is really key to understand like what does their day-to-day look like. Majority of the product managers and product marketing, we don't come from the role that we're targeting. Like in our current company, it's IT. I've never worked in IT. In my previous company, I was in telecom. I've never worked in telecom. So how am I going to really understand their pain points if I don't talk to these customers, right? And I think that's the really key for both PMs and PMMs is to help yourself understand what are their daily struggles, what does their daily workflow look like. So some of the typical questions that we like to ask is, hey, can you walk me through a typical day when you're doing certain task related to the problem that you're trying to solve? How would you describe that process of doing it? And then ask a lot of follow-up questions. Can you elaborate on this? What do you mean by that? Or like, how do you do this? Or just ask a lot of follow-up questions as you're trying to really understand. Because the goal of those meetings is by the end of it, you fully understand what their day-to-day look like. How do they, solve a problem? Like have that goal in mind. And if you're not clear on that yet, ask follow-up questions. Like that's the key. And some other questions like, hey, what tools or workarounds are you using today? Have you tried to solve this problem in the past? And if so, what worked? What didn't? Why does that pain still exist? So it's just like a lot of questions, and then that you can like be curious, right? Like that's the whole point. And then just have an end goal in mind, like what are you trying to achieve? That will help.
Yeah, and then after you did this, right, you will understand how a user is like, where is a user's starting point in this problem? Where is the user's end goal? You can lay out all of their journey one by one, as well as each challenge that you discovered, right, throughout these interviews. You lay this up and then you prioritize a problem that you want to solve based on this user journey that you will be able to create as an outcome of the interviews. Now, then you just prioritize one challenge and a problem that you want to solve and you solve it. how to prioritize this challenge. It's a lot of intuition too, but very often the most kind of complicated challenge that your customers have is the one that needs to be worked on, because without it, likely there will be a possibility for churn. So now, after you selected a problem, you will design very quickly 2, 3 low-code or no-code solutions and go and conduct a user testing. User testing is now a process of where you show them certain designs, certain workflows. They go through this and you just understand if the solution that you created is easy to follow and has a good user experience, or it needs some tweaks. And then you go, you pivot, and again, maybe do it multiple times, and you will be able to design something that is wonderful and will help your business to get to the goal that they plan to get.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wait, Anya, I'm curious. So, as a product manager, you've done all your homework, you launched a survey, you ran interviews, you've heard the pain of your customers really loud and clear. You're
Mm-hmm.
pretty confident that you know what the solution is. So, why do we sometimes have like minimal viable product, like an MVP, and not just go full all in, like launch everything that you think the solution will help solve? Like, why is that?
Yeah, so for minimum viable product, I also think it's overrated thing, and we can have another episode about minimum viable product. I don't think minimum viable product is always a solution, but the success of a feature itself, not a product, but a feature, depends on additional factors. These are discoverability, how complicated your feature is, and high quality. Like if there are like if your main workflow is uninterrupted with bugs. So this MVP or the the feature that you test, you have to ensure that it is easily discoverable within your product, meaning that it is located within your user flow and not buried somewhere where they cannot, access. Then how complicated feature is, right? Another reason for feature fail, they're too complicated and the users have to think very hard or read extra materials in order to onboard these features. Who here really loves reading manuals before they, install an app and use it? No one. And finally, high quality. If they start using a feature, but something very, very important and very key doesn't work, they will drop. They will never use a feature, and you will think that feature is not successful, but in reality, it was just a UX feature. So also look for all of the 3 factors in order to before like launching a feature and ensuring that your tracking is not biased by potentially the problems that can happen with these 3 factors.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then I'm just trying to think about like all the MVPs of features and products that we've launched in the past. I kind of think of like MVP as giving customers the immediate relief.
Mm-hmm.
I think of it like treating like a physical pain, right? Like you have a aching back and you're like, okay, I pop in a Advil and it helps me relieve that pain. But it doesn't really solve maybe the root cause of it, which it might be a spine adjustment, which is the full feature. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I think it's just like maybe different strategies on helping them get through the day as well, the MVP, without the full feature launch, which can take maybe longer. Anyway,
Yeah.
thanks for the great deep dive, Anya. I definitely learned a thing or two just about understanding, hey, like how you think through, features and like the backlog, which I've seen, it's like huge, right? So I think hopefully this framework will help a lot of the product managers out there to minimize your failure and increases your chance for successful feature launches and product launches. Anyways, Anya, let's dive into our favorite segment, Sassy Moms, mom segment. So, Anya, I'm curious. I haven't chatted with you for, a few days now. I think we've been kind of busy with life and everything else. So, give me an update on where you're at, your baby and sleep and everything else. I know that was kind of your biggest struggle since we last chatted.
Yes. it's funny, every time we record an episode, I have like a stress, like sleep struggle because it goes with waves. Some weeks are easy and others are not. Um, we traveled to
Mm.
another city and spent like 1.5 weeks there. And first of all, through travel and through a lot of guests, introduction of new people, there has been some sleep challenges and overstimulation. Um, Especially because this was a period where we transitioned from 4 naps to 3 naps. And the 4 to 3 nap transition has been hard for me. It was going for like 4 5 weeks.
Mm.
And then after the travel, when we come back home, it still apparently needed him to adjust. Everything honestly like went into a trash can. Like all of the nights, like every expectation on how the night goes, which usually is like going to bed at 7:50 p.m., waking up at 5 a.m. to have some food, going back to sleep, waking up at 7:20 a.m. All of this was scratched, but I found out a couple of things that I learned, and maybe I can talk about
Yeah,
it
yeah.
right now. So, the first reason why my baby started crying at night much more often and waking up was because his naps improved, and I ended up giving him more naps than it was before. So let's say he was on the 2 hour 45 minutes total naps throughout the
Mhm,
day,
mhm,
and
mhm.
then he started suddenly like napping so well that he was on the 3.3.5 hours of a total nap a day. So this made him less tired at night, and he just woke up and he wanted to party, and no one was there for him. So he became like pretty screaming. Another thing that I've learned is that I should not be afraid to get my baby early into bed. And I was afraid. Like I didn't want to get him to bed at 6 p.m.
Yeah.
But I had to because he was somehow on the overtired loop. Again, maybe from schedule changes, maybe something like that. So there was one night actually when I put him to bed at like 6:30 p.m., which is very early, but it was pretty nice night. He still slept through like up until like 3, even 4 a.m., despite of the fact that I thought he will wake up at 2. So
Mm.
early nights is great to regulate their schedule. And then another thing that I learned, which today, that the first nap is usually the time from when baby goes, like not wakes up, but is picked up from a crib. So let's say if my baby woke up today at 6:55 a.m., but I picked him up from a crib at like 7:15 a.m., then ideally it's better to push this first nap to like, let's say 9:30 a.m. Because this will start a day and ensure that the next day they wake up at like 7:15 a.m. again. I didn't know this, and all of this helps me to kind of regulate his schedule a little bit. But
Yeah.
right now, I'm living like I don't know what night will bring. It can be a night where he cries. It also can be a night where he just sleeps peacefully.
Yeah.
So yeah, just trying to do that.
Yeah, no, I think you brought up a lot of like I think all the good points because I've been through it as well.
Hmm.
The transitioning of the naps like from 4 to 3 and then 3 to 2, so tough because
Yeah.
especially when they haven't fully regulated the amount of nap they do for each nap. So like
Hmm.
what you said, right? Like it's like a ripple effect. So if you they go from 4 to 3, that means
Hmm.
like the last nap maybe like 2 or 3 in at the
Yeah,
afternoon. You can't push like a 4 hour wake window until the night, right? So it's like that was really
exactly. Yeah.
tough. Yeah. And then the other thing that you mentioned as well is the ideal waking time. That is actually really critical because that's something that I have learned the hard way. Is like
Mm.
actually my firstborn, he always woke up at 5 a.m. And I was
My
like,
God.
this is killing me.
Oh my God. Yeah. And then you're in a loop because then
Yeah,
he
and then
starts
it's like when he wakes up at 5, like I got into a rhythm of waking up at 5 because I'm so used to it, right? Like body clock is telling me I should be waking up, but I'm like dead tired. the crib hour is so important. It's a concept that I recommend all moms to kind of read up on it. Is like what is your ideal wake up time? So you don't try to get the kid before then. So you try to like just let him, be in bed until that certain time.
Yeah.
That helps to try to regulate that. That was one hard lesson that I learned because I lived the 5 a.m. for so long. Um, I was
Yeah, yeah.
making myself crazy.
Yeah, like actually also another thing I wanted to mention is that one of the it's hard, like my baby today woke up at like let's say 6:50, but I needed him
Yeah,
to get up at 7:20 and he was on his tummy there. And like I am there like just pretending to sleep or whatever so that they
yeah,
just like it's crazy. But yeah, the worst night that I had was when he couldn't nap very well. During like first second nap, but then the third nap of the day, he did it like 1.5 hours or almost two. So
yeah.
between like let's say 2 and 4. And then it actually ended up regulating his bedtime because he started going like it was a day when he would be able to go to bedtime at like 7:30 p.m. But the night was so bad. Like he just woke up, he couldn't sleep, and yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to balance. I think you have to look at even as a newborn, I think that was one
Mhm.
of the tip we talked about during one of the episode was in like as a newborn, you need to cap each nap like at 2 hours because
Yeah.
or else like they would just not sleep at night because they got enough daytime. So there's two things like I would recommend all moms to take a look at. It's like what is the total amount of day sleep that is age appropriate? And then you need to cap it. And then also each nap need to be capped in a certain time so you don't go crazy. And I think
Yeah.
you already know it because you saw it happening at the nighttime. Because like
Yeah.
you have too much day sleep, yeah, your night it's gonna get crazy. It's nice in the morning and the afternoon and
Hmm.
or in the at night. So
Yeah, and also like look at your baby. Like my baby is a little bit ahead into like I think maybe he's like lower sleep need person.
Yeah, yeah.
So his age appropriate total sleep, let's say, is 3.5 hours or 3 hours 15 minutes, but he honestly is much better at doing like 2 hours and 45 minutes throughout the day. So also like look at your baby, but calculate those. I didn't calculate this. I did like mental math and I somehow remember. But again, like everyone tells, oh, your baby needs to like sleep well. So today I had to cap my baby's nap at 1.5 hours because 2 hour nap will not work in the morning. So yeah, just look at your baby still.
Yeah, and I remember even like when I mentioned it's like, oh, maybe he's like cutting one nap. You're like, oh, I think he's like too early because he's
Mm-hmm.
like what it was like 4 months when we chatted.
Yeah.
Usually it happens around like 5, 6. I think that was what when we looked at it together. So yeah, like I think those are like guidance, but obviously look at your baby to see what's, the most appropriate.
Yeah, but actually something that I am curious the most because I know that these times will come. I've heard multiple things from moms through a lot of social channel that, spring break is really not a break for
Oh.
a working mom. And I know you had a crazy, crazy spring break by
Yeah.
yourself.
Mhm.
Can you just tell me, first of all, why, and also how was it for you? Again, I hear multiple things that it's sometimes easier to just be at work
Oh
rather
my
than at
goodness.
home, especially if you have multiple kids. And we
Yes.
need to remind that you only have 3 kids.
Funny enough that you asked this because I'm actually planning for summer break now, which is crazy.
Oh.
It's like 2 months versus 2 weeks. But anyway, so this year, so what I usually do, the twins are still in daycare, so that's fine because they still have their regular, routine. It's my
Mm-hmm.
older son who's now in elementary school, so I have to plan activities for him. And then the tough part about these activities is like sometimes they're like only 9 to 3. So I have to like arrange like pickups and like drop off
Mm-hmm.
and things like that, which is tough. Um, Not all camps. Oh yeah, the other thing was like as your kid gets older, they pick and choose what camps they want to get into. Because when he was younger, I was like, hey, I'm gonna pick the ones that is like the longest, like 8 to 6, right? Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, oh no, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to do it this and that and that. And so you're trying to figure that day out. And then the other thing, which I did this year, and sometimes I do this every single year too, as well, is I take time off. I'm like, what am I thinking? I took a few days off. Oh my goodness, this is harder than work. Um,
Oh my
Trying to
God.
like organize their day and like trying to like plan activities and like going out and like it was just crazy. And then having all three of them like be together probably way too much. Just caused like way too much tension as well. Like they were fighting constantly. So my day was just like, oh my goodness, I can't wait to get back to work, actually.
So, okay, I'm curious about fighting. So, okay, your kids fight and you just like cook your dinner.
Yeah. Well, it's so hard because like you hear like one kid like screaming and then the other one it's like, oh, my brother did this, my sister did this, and then one is whining. So you have like constant like noise that are just
Mm-hmm.
in your ears. And like I usually don't interfere with their kind of
Okay.
fight.
Mm-hmm.
I just let them like, hey, like I try to listen to each one. Like each
Mm-hmm.
one tells me obviously a different story because
Yeah.
it's like, he started it. No, I didn't. So yeah, like I try to listen to them and like I'm like, okay, like each one of you are telling me different things, but all I'm hearing is like, okay, like there's this and this that happened. So I try to narrate it back to them of what I'm like what I heard.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, I think the problem is this. Can you guys go and try to solve it? And then if you can't, then come and, come again, right? But obviously they're still kids, so it's
Mm-hmm.
always like I feel like they understand me because I've always used this strategy because I don't want to get involved. And I've been a sibling too.
Mm-hmm.
And when the parent choose a side, right? It's like, oh, the older one, because I'm the older one. Oh, you did
Yeah.
this, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So like I try to not do that. But it's just, man, so tough. I
And I see you're like product marketing manager doing those user interviews, asking everyone for their opinion, then identifying a problem, giving it to kids and saying, okay, can you try to find a solution? Look at
Yes.
you go.
Without involving me, please.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's interesting. So basically what I'm hearing is that you are a full-time working parent who
Hmm.
now needs to, in addition to their full-time work, also go home and then do extra planning for summer break at night, not
Hmm.
having any breaks while also negotiating things with your kids. So
Yes.
basically, your work doesn't end
It doesn't.
once
It's
you,
different. It's
yeah.
different kind of work. So work is obviously like very different, right? When
Hmm.
you go home, it's like more emotional drain because you're constantly trying to like negotiate with your kids, trying to like, like help them too, right? Like, yeah, like, and then like being able to like be present with them as well. I think that's one of
Hmm.
the things I struggle with is like when work gets tiring and the last month has been like a little bit crazy for me
Yep.
for work. So going home, it's like, oh man, like I'm so tired. And they're like, can you read me a story? Can you do this? And like, can you do that? Right?
Hmm.
Like, oh man, can you just let me lie down?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, that's definitely tough and challenging. Is there a way to potentially like divide this type of responsibilities with your partner?
Yeah, no, definitely. But I don't know if I mentioned on this podcast, but like my husband and I, we kind of work different schedules. Like I'm kind of a like an office job, so I, usually come home in the evening, but my husband
Oh.
is on shift work, right? So it just depends to balance. I don't have any tips. I'm just kind of rambling.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, what tips can you get? The only tip you can have here is just providing empathy to every working mom out there and saying that, hey, you're doing a great job. And even if you sometimes don't fully spend like 100% of attention with your kids, don't feel guilty because it's just part of us as human beings. We as moms are allowed to be tired.
I know. And then like I think when you're tired, you get frustrated too. And sometimes like you raise your voice and it's not
Hmm.
intended. And I feel like I have a lot of those mom guilts. Sometimes like, oh man, like I should have read them the story, even though I was super tired or like whatever it is. Because you look at their little hands, it's like, oh, they're not going to be so little anymore, right? And you have to look
Hmm.
at. But I think it's just like definitely, I would recommend any working moms just have some like time to yourself, like organize it with your husband. even at night, try to put them to sleep around like, I don't know, before 9. So you at least have an hour or two before, just as your like kind of me time. I think that's
Hmm.
important just to recharge. Because yeah, it's hard when you have those, when you're busy at work, when you're busy at home, when you don't have those like time to like fully recharge yourself, you do get drained.
Okay. Oh, so we are at about like an hour, but I
Yeah,
want to ask another question, which
yeah.
might be a little bit naive from my side. But you mentioned that okay, your kid is in elementary school, so it's summer break, so now it needs to be filled with activities, and you're
Oh,
planning these activities, right? Question. What if you decide to not plan those activities and just let your kid to, I don't know, do nothing?
but
Is
then
this an option?
who's gonna take care of him?
Okay,
Question.
okay. So, okay, got it. So they need to plan activities when you are at work. Okay, okay,
Yeah,
makes
yeah. So
sense. Yeah,
not
yeah.
activities like on the weekends. It's more just
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, during the regular school days, they're like, whatever time. So either my parents could help, which obviously
Mm-hmm.
I don't want as many as possible, but also it's just like he needs to burn off his energy. If he's at home,
Mm-hmm.
it's too much. That's primarily it. So like we're usually
Got it.
like for summers. I'm trying to like obviously my husband works different schedules. So when he is at home, usually he will bring the kids out and like do different activities. But when
Mm.
not, that's when I need to book like activities and summer camps and things like that. And like you know what the crazy thing is, Anya, is like these
Mm.
summer camps get filled up so quickly. It's insane.
All parents just let me get a kid in a summer camp.
Like all my calendar actually. It's like I need to like remind myself like, hey, you need to look at this one, you need to book here, and then
Oh,
like all
that's
these
crazy.
things is like I'm like a master scheduler.
So it's just like I remember now in Ukraine, a lot of kids just send their because in Ukraine, like there is a lot of internal immigration happening,
Mhm.
and if you're from a small town, you likely will live like in a very large city, but then your parents are still living in small town. So what happens usually is that our parents used to give us to like grandparents for the summer. So that like this is I guess how like Ukrainian like low income families solve the problem. They just send their kids to the grandparents
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the kids are just wandering there really not
yeah,
doing
yeah.
much, or like if it's like a farmhouse they will find other kids from this farm and they will be just all there like spending most of their time outdoors playing some stupid games.
Hmm.
So this
Yeah,
is how like people in Ukraine did it.
yeah, yeah. So, very similar.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I think that's it for our episode today. So if you like today's episode, please give us a like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week. Bye for now.
Yeah. Bye for now. Bye bye.